It's my pleasure today to introduce Syl Carson. She began her yoga practice 17 years ago. However, it took on most significance for her as a role in her life 12 years ago when she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia. And her doctor, who was from India, recommended that she continue her yoga practice as a complementary therapy. And after many years, she says it's been an invaluable tool in rheumatoid arthritis symptom management, and her dedicated yoga practice allowed her to restore her range of motion and free herself from feeling controlled by health limitations. So that's, I think, an exciting aspect of her presentation I'm looking forward to hearing about. In 2000, she obtained her certification as a yoga instructor from the White Lotus Foundation in Santa Barbara, California. The same year, she founded White Mountain Yoga, located here in Provo. Her name means from the forest, is that right? And she chose the name White Mountain Yoga because as she began her first yoga practice, it enlivened primordial, I can't say these fancy yoga words, enlivened primordial memories of peace and balance, and it was meant in a place of bright white light and clean air, which is what she feels like her clients feel when they leave her after workout. In 2002, she was awarded certification as Advanced Master Thai Yoga Therapist from Saul David Ray. She has received over 6,000 hours of training in 7 separate yoga modalities. I'll let you list them, I'll mess them up. Syl has released 3 yoga guidebooks, 5 yoga DVDs, and 6 CDs through White Mountain Multimedia LLC. In 2004, she partnered with best-selling author Carol Tuttle in the 20-hour DVD series, Becoming a Vibrant Human Being. In addition to her White Mountain Yoga series and her studio, she is on a morning program with KJazz TV called The Home Team as a regular guest on that program. She has done workshops around the country. She maintains a private Thai yoga therapy practice clientele, and she was just last month featured in Utah Valley Magazine as one of 50 fabulous people from Utah Valley. So we're really excited to hear about her experiences in building this business and her practice. Welcome, Syl Carson.
I need to turn this on. About yoga. I'm usually sitting crisscross though, so this is a bit of a stretch to have to stand and talk at the same time. I really was kind of contemplating what the point I wanted to get across today, something that would be valuable for you, specific to entrepreneurship and building a business. And as I thought about it, I really thought about what the best thing that yoga has done for me, or really the journey of building this business, which are one and the same thing for me. And it sounds like a philosophy class, but this is what I came up with. When you really discover a sustainable livelihood for yourself that's perfect for you, you actually give yourself the gift of offering your life as an emblem of faith. And that is a faith of the way you belong to the world. And it becomes, your work and your identity become one and the same thing in the best positive sense. And you enter a completely creative and courageous conversation with the practice of your work and your life as your practice, which for me is one and the same with yoga. A quick history of a little of my story. You got some of it in the bio, but I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I practiced yoga as a way to work out. It was a great way to get a good sweat and a good workout. I'd done it on my own for about 5 years. My husband at the time, who actually was a teacher here at the Y in the econ department, transferred to Texas. And I lived there with him for about 9 years before we split. And during that time was one of the times when I got really sick, and that's when I went to my doctor, who was from India, and he said, "You need to do some yoga." And so for the first time, he had a DVD in his office that told what yoga was. And yoga is a Sanskrit word that simply means to yoke. So it means to yoke all the areas in your life to work in the most symbiotic way possible. It's a spiritual practice, it's a physical practice, it's a mental practice, and when we treat it that way, it can really enliven our lives in a completely different way than you would suspect, going to the gym and going through a motion of a routine and a workout. So with the practice of yoga and seeing this DVD, I kind of got it for the first time. So I sought out a instructor who had an understanding of yoga as a therapeutic practice because of my health challenges. And when I did that, something occurred to really spur me on to do that. I was sitting in a rocking chair with my 2.5-year-old son, and at that time, in order to change his diaper, I couldn't physically stand up at a changing table. So I'd have to sit on the back of the couch and then slide down to the arm, get to the couch, slide down to the floor, change his diaper, and then work my way back up to standing. So I was in a place where I was actually counting the minutes I was out of bed during the day as opposed to counting how long I'd been in bed. So things had progressed pretty substantially at that point. And at one point I was sitting in my rocking chair and I hear his pitter-patter of his feet coming down the hallway, and he says, "Mommy, I want you to come see what I'm doing in my room." And I said, "Oh, Mom, I'm just too tired, honey. You go do what you're doing, go play, you don't have to stop for me." And I heard him go back and tool around in his room for a few moments and then pitter-patter down the hall, and my heart just sank because I knew, that I really wanted to be there for him. So as I was, he said, "Come back in my room." So as I'm looking at the back of his 2.5-year-old head, walking down the hallway as we walk back to his room, I hear his voice say, "Thank you for giving up your rocker, Mom." And it was like, I am so toast if I don't do something right now. And that really stimulated me to go to the doctor and say, I've got to have something to help me. Then he showed me the DVD, and I sought out a yoga instructor that understood the therapeutic aspects of it. So when I attended my first yoga class, I experienced actually a lot of fear and a lot of discouragement at where my body had gone to, but by the end of that class, I felt like I'd come home to myself within a 90-minute period, and I was lost to yoga at that point in a good way. So when I split from my son's dad, I came back to Utah County where I grew up, and there were no yoga classes that I could really find around town. So I did it on my own, and I talked to friends about how much I loved it. And I was approached by the residents up at Sundance, a few of the women there, who said, "We'd love you to come teach us some yoga." And I said, "I'm not an instructor, but I'll come and share with you what I know so far." And essentially 10 years later, that's really what I'm doing. I'm sharing with people what I've learned so far from yoga as a life practice. A lot of people don't realize that yoga, it means to yoke, but yoga is anything that unites you. So we may have some golfer yogis in here. What else? Camping yogis. Basketball is my yoga. Fishing is my yoga. That sort of thing. Anything that unites yourself into a balanced state of mind where you kind of leave time and space. Time moves quicker. You're enjoying yourself. You're in a yoga. Okay. So there's several different styles of yoga. Bhakti is the yoga of religion. So if you belong to the LDS faith or any other organized religion, that's considered bhakti yoga, which is yoga of devotion, and you do observances and different things like that. There is a yoga of service, which is karma yoga, which is like Mother Teresa was a karma yogi because she dedicated her life to service. So yoga has a much broader sense than a lot of people think of when they think of yoga as just a great way to work out or a class to take at the gym like you're reading a menu. I think that sounds good. I'll try yoga. Okay. So that's really how I got into the practice. And since I was teaching people, I felt like I needed to be certified. Because I am LDS, I sought out a non-dogmatic certification. I didn't want to have to follow any one guru. So I let yoga be my guru, basically. And And during that time, I was involved in a career here at Far West Bank. I was a banker. I'd been in banking for about 12 or 13 years at the time I returned back to Utah, and they had a fabulous walkout basement office in the bottom of this new bank. I'd negotiated the property, and I was opening up the new branch for the bank. And I had my eye on the space below the bank. So I got permission to lease the space for a very nominal amount of money and started teaching classes out of the lower level of the bank. So I'd have customers come in and make their deposit, namaste, you know. And it was a fantastic crossover between my two lives. I felt like I had a kind of a split life. I had this finance person with a business background, and yet what was really feeding me at that time was crossing over to yoga full time. So as I returned to Provo, I did found White Mountain Yoga in 2000. By 2004, I partnered with a local author who got my business card from someone in town and wanted to try Thai yoga therapy. And do I have a mouse? Can I maneuver on here at all with the website? Keyboard. Oh, there it is. Okay. So Thai yoga therapy is an advanced training that the place where I was certified to teach yoga offers classes in Thai yoga therapy, where you go and you live there for just under a month and you learn to take someone through a passive yoga practice. So they lay on a mat for 2 hours and you move their body through assisted twists and stretches and different things. So we're looking at the gallery of the website right now. But in order to improve my yoga teaching, I returned there thinking that this would give me more experience as a yoga instructor. And when I got there, you're living there for about 30 days. This is Tommy and myself when he was just about 3 years old. But the Thai Yoga Therapy Gallery on the website, you're taking someone through a yoga practice. So I start by pressing on the legs. And it's basically I use my knees, my feet, my hands to put them in yoga postures while I do yoga postures myself. And so I got there and I was a little bit blown away by it because I was just looking for a way to give better hands-on adjustments in a yoga class. But as I took on this practice, here's a low back release. And here's just some fun, hopping from one place to the next. But this gives you an idea. I got there and I was shocked that I was like doing body work on people, basically. So as I found a way to sort of create more depth to my practice, to become a better teacher, I stumbled on something I knew was really going to change my life. So as I returned back from my it was actually 3.5 weeks vacation, and came back to the bank and taught my first yoga class that evening, some of my students said, well, we want to know what you've learned while you're away. So I demonstrated it on a few of them, and each one of them said, you know, I want to schedule a session, and that had never occurred to me that I might do this professionally. And so I did. I worked on a few clients, and they all wanted to reschedule. And it got to the point where I was taking 2 hours for my lunch at the bank and doing a Thai yoga session, and I charged $140 for the 2 hours. And at the time, I was making about $19 an hour at the bank, and I found that I could make as much as I made at the bank all day on my lunch hour. So it was occurring to me, especially as my son got to be about 8 years old, I felt a really strong need to be home with him when he got off the bus and be more available for him. So things started to stir inside of me. About the same time, I had students who came up and said, many of them were moms in town, and said, I don't want to go away for 30 days, but I do want to teach yoga. I want to teach some yoga classes out of my home and create some supplemental income for myself or some extra spending money or something. But I love this discipline that you're teaching us. So at that point, I started considering offering a certification through my fledgling business. I changed from a sole proprietorship to an LLC. Luckily, I'd had some banking experience, so I knew what that meant. And I knew how easy it is for companies who are new to literally grow straight up to the point that they grow themselves broke. And most companies that I saw working at the bank that were very successful had an ability to grow out. So you plant roots like a tree and expand out enough in different directions that you can sustain something growing up. So at that point, I took a couple of years and I wrote my first teacher training manual, and I said, okay, I'm offering a teacher training, and I had 7 people enroll. I charged $2,500 a head. So for the 2 weeks of training, I, again, took a 2-week vacation from the bank because I hadn't been able to leave the 401k and the bank stock at that point. So for the 2 weeks, I made $17,000, and I thought, well, now this is very interesting because I like the ratio. I feel like the amount of work I put in for 2 weeks was worth every penny of $17,000, and then I went back to the bank to the $19, $20 an hour job. So when I'm weighing all of these different things, how I feel about being home for my son, how I feel about my love for yoga and what it's done for me physically, and how much I enjoy sharing that with other people, I felt like after that point that I was lying when I walked in the bank and I sat down behind that desk. I didn't feel like I was wholehearted, and I actually felt like the $19, I wasn't worth that an hour because my heart was not in the job at all. And that's what I mean by, you know, if there's one thing you could take away from what I say today to help you in your life and developing whatever kind of livelihood you choose to do, it's that you create a livelihood that both sustains you and inspires you at the same time. Because if you have a great dream and it's a great idea and you love it, that's great. Do what you love and the money will follow. I agree with the first half of that statement. Okay? Do what you love. Okay? And then find a way to make it sustainable, because there's always a way to make it sustainable for you. So through this kind of meandering, I felt like it was more of a calling in the sense that I never went out to teach yoga. I never went out to start a business. It showed up, and I had to pay attention at what was happening, what type of compensation for the hours I was working. You know, there was a big difference between the bank and yoga. But at the same time, can I really support myself charging somebody $7, $8 for a yoga class and just hope that all those people can come in? No, I couldn't. But what happened was I had this inner sense, this inner knowing that this Thai yoga therapy was the right thing for me. So luckily I was doing yoga so I could slow down enough to check in and see how it felt. And for men, typically, you'll check in and see how it feels in your gut. Women check in with their intuitive sense. And it's just kind of a difference in the sexes. It's not sexist. It's just a difference. But I love the saying by G.K. Chesterton, because it applies to me. It's sort of one of my mantras, that a woman uses her intelligence to find reasons to support her intuition. And that's really what I was doing in the development of this business. That I had this intuitive sense that I needed to do something else, but I had to use my intelligence to figure out how to make it viable, how to make it sustainable for me. So in doing this, one of the things that I stumbled on with Carol Tuttle, who is an author, she's an energy healer, an energy psychologist, which is a whole other branch, and it is really a burgeoning branch in our culture right now, but the growth and the potential for growth in it is huge. I don't know if any of you have ever been to a massage. Have any of you ever had a massage? Go ahead. Okay. That number, you know, when I started White Mountain Yoga, wouldn't be near as high. Anybody ever had a Reiki session? Do you know Reiki at all? It's a type of energy work where they don't actually touch your body, but they work with you. In the psychology department, I'm sure you could find people who are aware of something called DPR, which is an eye movement therapy, where they found that the right and left lobes of the brain are connected to your bilateral stimulation. So energy psychology kind of takes a lot of these different ideas and creates different healing modalities for people, and that's what Carol Tuttle did. And she is a very interesting woman, very gregarious, and wonderful at growing a business. And she's a rapid eye therapist. So yoga was right in line with sort of the alternative medicine type of things. So when she found my card, she called me, and I did a session on her. And she said, I do seminars every month, and I'd like you to come and share what you know so far, basically. And so she filmed a 20-hour DVD series that she released through her website, and that taught me a tremendous amount about back-of-the-room sales. Something people were asking me. I was up there speaking, and they said, well, I want something I can do at home. I want to be able to do some yoga at home. Can you, do you have a DVD, or do you have any audio CDs, or do you have something to take with me? And so again, here was the customer presenting themselves to me in a way that they were asking for what I knew, but again, here's another idea of a yoga class to teach without me actually having to physically show up to be there. So again, it was another way to branch out as far as roots go, rather than just trying to build on yoga classes straight up. So the limited, it's very easy when you start a business, if you love it, to assume that everybody else loves it as much as you do, and we get tunnel vision where we just focus on how much we love this one thing. But when people show up for you, if you're paying attention, then you can be in a place where you can check in and see if it's something that makes sense to you or not. So I took some of the funds that I made from the teacher certification, and I filmed a couple of yoga DVDs. And I started to sell those in the back room. I also learned a lot about websites from Carol, who had her own website. She has an international following. And so that's when I knew that it was actually a business. And that was about 3 years into, 2004, so about 4 years into this. That started out as me just doing what felt natural to me. So at that point, I had created a second way to support myself. So not only do I physically show up and teach people yoga classes because I love the practice, I love what it does for me, and I can say firsthand some of the benefits of it, but I have a way for people to take a class from me and not have to show up and get paid, which I'm all about passive income. It's my new favorite thing, okay? Because that allows me to have time to do my own yoga practice, okay? It's really common for someone to open up something that they like a yoga school or teach classes, karate or whatever, because they love the discipline. But then you find yourself locked into the business model, and you're not a business person. And so the nice thing about the way this has happened is I did have a business background in banking, which gave me a lot of perspective to use my mind to create something with the body. So the White Mountain Center for Yoga was basically founded at that point. And during that time, I realized I had to leave the bank, so I gave them my notice, and they offered to have me continue to teach classes in the basement because they thought I'd be back. They thought I was crazy. Go, she'll be back. About 90 days later, when they realized I wasn't coming back, was the time when I was again thinking, as I was teaching classes in the basement of the bank, that it didn't quite feel right to me. It felt like my container was too small for what I was trying to create. So there are a couple of things you can do. You can shrink what you're trying to create to the size of your container, okay, or you can expand it. And since we're at the Y, I can share one of my favorite concepts from scriptures. We use the phrase, "You're not given more than you can bear," okay? And I love the quote from Mother Teresa that says, God's told me He won't give me more than I can bear, but I just wish He didn't trust me so much. That sort of a feeling. We kind of fall into that line of thinking, but are we aware that one of the things that's saying is blessings and pleasure? So you really won't be given more than you can bear as far as negative things, but also positive things. So my conversation internally was, how do I apprentice myself in a way that I can increase the size of the container to hold what people are bringing to me. And so one of the ways I did that was launching a website, and it was a very rudimentary website, getting started, and hooked up with a company called automateyourwebsite.com and learned about building a database. So I stopped getting people's addresses, and I started getting people's emails. And as I did that, they could share their love of yoga here in Utah Valley with family and friends who lived outside. And at that point, I started offering a newsletter on the website because I had people emailing me saying, I wish I could come to your classes. Is there any way you do any sort of long-distance learning programs? So at that point, I started the White Mountain Yoga Center online community. And I've brought a sign-up sheet. So if any of you want some of these, I send out a monthly newsletter that talks a little bit about some of the things I've talked about today, but mainly just food for thought, things you can do at home, things that help with diet and things. So I'll pass this around if any of you want to enroll, or if you're interested in becoming certified to teach yoga at any point. So at this point, I started, the way I teach, rather, because we're in a college town, the clientele that I had coming to classes was a little bit a cut above people going into a gym for a yoga class, in the sense that they wanted more than just a workout. They wanted to learn what yoga was. Number one, because in this area at the turn of the millennium, 2000, people in this area were still a little suspicious of yoga. Does it conflict with my religious beliefs? And so I would teach basically several different styles of yoga. I continued to do ongoing trainings and was basically using a lot of my income just to support my own love and additional trainings in yoga. And that's where I got the 7 different modalities of training. So in this area, what I decided to do was, rather than offer a class where people might show up or not, and then I'd scheduled a babysitter and time away from my son that was precious to me, that I felt like it was a drain of my resource, and it felt like it didn't honor the way that I felt about the practice and sharing it. So at that point, I decided to teach something called a yoga series. It was an 8-week series, and I started with January with teaching the sacred breath. So I teach about 12 different types of yoga breathing within the context of a great workout class and a nice restorative class. So I taught 2 classes a week. Then I went on to yoga and self-acupressure fundamentals. So I teach about how you hit different acupressure points will get you deeper into yoga postures. I went on to teach the strengths of flexibility, how to use isometric exercise in relation to, somebody coming in who is a loosey-goosey in a yoga class tends to hang out in their joints and wear out some of their actual skeletal structure and the synovial fluid. Somebody who's really buffed out, or buff, I don't know what they say these days, or if it's something else, so forgive me, may have really tight muscles, so yoga might feel really uncomfortable. How do you balance your strength and your flexibility? So I taught a course of 6 different types of yoga over a year period so people could get a better understanding of all of the benefits of it. And that way I specialized myself from the yoga instructors that were starting to pop up at the gyms, okay, in different places. So no matter where you get it, it's great. If you can try a yoga class, do it. I have free passes, so come try it with me. It won't cost you a dime. Those are in the back. But during this time, I'm teaching both the philosophical aspect of yoga and the workout, the more technical side of things, and trying to find ways to meet the demands of emails, online community. So I started the online store at White Mountain Yoga, and over the course of the last 10 years, I've released several different multimedia products. But even in that, I'll get a call or an email from several different people, and if I know it happens 3 or 4 times on the same day, I know that I'm being called to pay attention to something. And so I offer several different kinds, and I brought a few of them here with me. But basically, There's a daily yoga practice for people that just want to learn yoga. They want to learn what that's like. And there's a chair yoga practice, because a lot of my clientele are women in between 40 and 70, 35 to 70-year-olds who may have issues. I also have this exposure through the energy healing and the energy psychology arena of people that don't necessarily want to do yoga, but they're really into the Chinese meridian lines, the auric field, which in Utah County you call it the countenance, your spiritual countenance, okay? So you've got to know what kind of words speak to the people you're working with. So the chair yoga practice appeals to those types of people. In addition to that, I give ongoing workshops and certifications. So as things started to branch out a little bit, I was just listening to what people were telling me they needed. And if it made sense to me, it was something I explored a little bit deeper. So the ongoing workshops and things, I don't know, have any of you seen The Secret, the movie The Secret? Anybody in here at all? A few of you? Okay. Through my exposure with Carol, I got a lot of people who are really into the fact that you create your own reality. And it's basically an idea of faith and action. And so I've released a couple of my workshop courses that are more just philosophy. We sit on the floor and talk about ideas and talk about how to create your best life. There's a women's retreat where we talk about the female archetypes. So basically I'm working with a broad range of clientele. So in order to meet those needs and not wear myself out, one of the main things that I did was I tried to create a solid business plan and a way to articulate what I wanted to get across to the variety of communities that were showing up for me. Okay? And the first one are people that come in locally. And people that come into White Mountain locally are a smattering. I've got a few BYU students who are stressed out, maxed out, and want to come in for a deeply restorative class where they can just be and breathe. And I've got a group that's really athletic that comes in for a vinyasa class like you would find at gyms and things, a good workout. But probably my largest group of local people are women between the ages of 35 and 70, 80 years old. And one of my favorite things about this group, especially the older women in this group, is I'll have a woman come in who is in her late 50s, maybe mid-60s. And she has decided that she's going to, she's raised 9 kids and never really taken a lot of care for herself, been very busy. And she's decided that she's resigned to the fact that she's growing old, but things have started to hurt. She starts to feel physical discomfort. So that's why she seeks out a yoga class. And in the first yoga class, after we're done, she complains about the fact that it hurt. But she comes back and starts to see relief by the second or third class. And 6 weeks into it, she's highlighted her hair. And that is one of my favorite things about the practice of yoga, is it creates a transformation in every other area that enriches every other area of your life. So that is my local clientele. That's who I know I'm going to cater to. Those are my biggest classes. They're fairly full classes. The other people that I cater to are people along the Wasatch Front, Idaho, Wyoming, and a few come down from Canada for workshops where I teach the broader aspects, the energy side of yoga. And that's a whole separate community. But those are also people along with locals that get the online newsletter, that have a few stretches that they can do in the morning or things that they can do different with their diet that will enrich their lives a little bit. So in the class schedule, I have a section that says, what is yoga? So people who go on the website, they can learn about the benefits of yoga, how it affects the body. So someone who might be looking at attending a class locally can sit and read through some of this, but it also reaches people who are further away who have just stumbled on my website and are considering buying a DVD. If they want to know what the benefits are, they can go here and read about it. So the website is a virtual online community of yogis, basically. I have a list of about 2,500 active emails, and of that 2,500 last year, I just made a small amount on the website of about $30,000. So that's the place I'm focusing on growing my business right now, growing the online community, because if you calculate that basically 2,500 people spent $30,000, if I could triple or quadruple that number, you could create a very sustainable income. So in this process, the website is an important part of my business. There's a section for people who come out of town or people that just want to learn about the White Mountain Center, where it came from and what it's doing, so they can familiarize themselves. There's a picture of the entrance to the center and things that they can do locally when they come from out of town. So all of this, you have website sales, which is one sort of leg of the stool or root of the tree. You have local weekly classes of people coming in. I have 4 other teachers now teaching for me who've come through the certification program and are teaching classes through the center. We have workshops and certifications which feed my desire to share yoga. So other than a couple of classes a week, those are the things I really show up for, that I really feel wholehearted about, and it feels like play to me. I really enjoy giving those workshops. And then the third is individual Thai partner yoga sessions. So I typically do maybe, 2-hour sessions 3 to 4 days a week. And that's how I sort of separate out the business. Because there's certain things, because it goes in different directions, sometimes I feel pulled a little bit. So I would probably say that my business is, it's doing more than one thing at a time, for sure. And right now I'm trying to bring in a good person who knows online stuff to help me grow the business for a percentage of my increased sales. So if you know anybody, or you are someone, give me a call. Okay. So right now I would have to say my business is probably in the adolescent stage. But a couple of things, lessons I've learned along the way, a couple things that happened. So we fast forward to feeling like the container at the bank was too small to hold what I wanted to do with the business. So I decided at that point that I would seek guidance. So I do that through prayer and meditation. Okay, I consider prayer speaking to God and meditation listening. Okay, and so I through this process, as I was leaving the bank one night after teaching yoga, I just said a little prayer in my heart. Help me know what to do. I feel like I've outgrown this, but I don't know where to go next. And the next day I went to my P.O. box, and there was a letter from the bank. They were so nice after 17 years to send me a letter saying, we're kicking you out. So that was the answer to my prayer. And I went through a period of growing pains, of learning a lot. There's a difference between watching other people do their business and making loans for them and having it be your baby where you've got a big emotional investment in it. So I went through a year of growing pains where I tried to find a space that had the right amount of rent for me, where I could still make some money and still have a home base for the online community. And during this time, I had a lot of people talking to me about the movie The Secret, saying, this is what you've been telling us for so long, but I don't get what the movie is saying. And essentially what the movie says is basically, if you have a perfect faith, things will work out for your best interest. But they do it in a very kind of material, packaged, kind of, cheeky kind of way, in a good way. I think it's a good movie. But it basically says that what you think happens, and you create it in your life. So I thought, well, fine, I'll teach maybe just one class a month of how I do this, because leaving the bank was a big change for people who attended my classes to see. A lot of my clients from the bank called me and said, congratulations, if I could do the same thing I would, but I don't have the courage to do it. Okay, so I started teaching these classes, and one of the things that occurred to me was that this was information that people on the online community would really be interested in. So I again had somebody from, his name is Ron, from Undergraduate Video Productions, come, and he charged me $50 a time to come film this workshop, and I sell it on the website. It cost me about $5.10 to produce, as far as the actual, kit of the 5 DVDs, and I sell it for $99 on the website, which people are more than willing to pay to find out a little bit more about what that secret is. So in that process, one of the things that I said in our first class was to set our intention for what you wanted out of the class. And for me, I was teaching a class on how to manifest things from your mind into a physical reality, which is basically business. It's what we do in business, is we take an idea and we create it in a way that it physically manifests in a way that's successful and sustainable for us. So as I was teaching this, the first thing that occurred to me is, number one, who am I to teach this class if I can't even manifest the right physical space to teach it in? Okay, I'm teaching people how to create their own reality. So the first class, my intention was to bring into reality a yoga center, a physical space that we could hold the class in, because I was renting at that point from a neurologist in town, doing classes out of her office. And I passed around a picture that I'd seen in a magazine. I was looking through Yoga Journal magazine between clients one day doing Thai yoga therapy, and I ran across a picture, and my response to this small image of this picture was, oh, that was my response. It was like, yeah, that feels so great. When I look at that, I go, ah. And in the traditions of yoga and a lot of Eastern traditions, the sound ah is the name of God. Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Mother, Father, all of that sound. So when you have something that makes you go, ah, like a sunset, or like you're supposed to do something in your business or in your career, you're on the right track. And this is one of the things I was teaching. So I realized I needed to cut the picture out of the magazine, and at this first class I passed the picture around, and everyone who saw it just went, ah. So I have now more people believing what I believe and having the same feeling about it. And the more people that share a certain belief, the more support you have in business or anything else. Everybody knows the word IBM, or the letters IBM or Mac. What we hold in our consciousness is a belief about what that is. And that is one of the biggest parts of successful businesses creating, a good, substantial following. So the energy of, oh, yes, you are one with what you're trying to create at that point. So during the 5 months of the DVD series that I filmed, you see on the first DVD me saying, I want to manifest a yoga center. You have somebody else saying, I want to manifest my car not breaking down. Somebody else saying, I want, this or that. And we work with the dynamics of basically faith in action and getting your body feeling good so good things can happen to you. So in this process, by the 5th DVD, we're in the center. What had happened is I was walking into my Thai yoga office, which is in Cotton Tree Square, one afternoon. I saw a for sale sign in the building next to me. And the Paul Harvey version of that story is, as I was looking around for a space where I could have classes for local clientele as well as people from further out coming for workshops, I didn't want to have to offer hospitality. I didn't want to have to offer beds or food, lodging, things like that. And I realized in Cotton Tree Square, where my Thai yoga office is, you have the Cotton Tree Inn right next door. And so I thought, how fantastic if there were a space in here for me to have a yoga center. But the thought was, in Cotton Tree Square, you have a lot of small business offices with about 8-foot ceilings. So the remodel would cost almost as much as your purchase price, because you'd have to tear down walls and do a whole bunch of mechanical things. So as soon as I get bogged down in the process of it, I experience more process. Okay? If I can stay in my faith in the conversation taking place and think about the moment where I am right now and what the next step is, then it's doable. So I take those times where I have a big sort of like visionary aha, and then I've got to be able to break it down into a way where I can think through the process and not get bogged down into it. Okay, and that is an art, and it takes courage, and you have to check your ego at the door. So one of the things I'd done about 2 months prior, on a Saturday afternoon, nobody was there, I was there, cleaning my own office, was I just walked around this building that was next door to my Thai yoga office. And I looked at the building. It's beautiful. It's a summer afternoon. It's got ivy growing on it. There's a soft breeze. And I had this sense of awe again. And I just went with that. I tried to feel as much of that as I possibly could and really connect with that feeling of appreciation and awe. And several weeks later, I go walking into my Thai yoga office, and there's a for sale sign on this building that I've sort of circled around a couple times. And so I walked in expecting to say, can I look at a few different offices here, expecting to see some small offices. And she said, okay, I'll show you. And the clock tower in Cotton Tree Square is very vertical. There are a lot of small offices, and okay, that would not work. She said, the only other thing I have is just a great big empty room with a vaulted ceiling. And I went, oh, let me take a look at that. And as I looked at the room, I went, oh. And it was the most fantastic space. So one of the things that happened was I went into a place of fear. Who am I, this little woman in the Utah Valley who knows the business atmosphere here? Who am I to do this? And I used several different techniques that I teach in yoga to help me get over that. But the primary ones that I don't teach in yoga was I went to the temple, I prayed, I had a blessing, and then I did meditation, howled at the moon, whatever I needed to do. So sorry, I didn't really howl at the moon. Here's the mic. It's fallen off. So, but basically at that point, I knew my container had just increased, and I went into a state of fear. And so I had to work with finding my courage in that space to move forward. And as I did so, one of the things that had happened a few months before was Far West Bank had decided to sell. So they were bought out by somebody else, and my branch manager stock that I had gotten went from $400 a share to $1,200 a share. It was a triple net deal. So I don't know if that's the right word, but it tripled. And so I had sold my stock, and I had gotten completely out of debt. So the idea of getting into debt again was another thing that didn't seem right to me. So I sat with the energy of it, and I decided to make a concession with myself that I would actually cash in my 401k and found a way to transfer it into the real estate of my business so I wouldn't have to pay the penalty. And for the next few months, I felt really bad in the evenings when I would see ads for, Fidelity Investments. Is your 401k going to be able to support you, when you're, retired? And I felt bad that I didn't leave it there, because I know at the place where compound interest starts working for you, I was right on the cusp of some good increases. So I felt a little bit bad that I had taken out my 401k at full value and rolled it into the yoga center. But at the same time, I knew that was the next logical thing for me to do in order to make it happen. And as I negotiated the property, I ended up settling on the property for about $20,000 less than I thought I was going to have to. I found out at closing, which was just an awesome bonus. And it made me go, which is awesome. So little did I know the market was going to tank and my 401k would be down to like less than 50% of its value, but I actually retained the full value of my 401k by following that intuitive sense that it was what I was supposed to do at the time, even though it didn't quite make sense. So for me, developing a business is a practice in intuition and knowing how to balance your intelligence with your gut, with your intuitive sense. And it's an art. It's something you have to develop. And, my shameless plug is yoga will help you with that quite a bit because it gives us a place of stillness and a place of quiet, even if that yoga is a few moments of meditation after your bedtime prayers or whatever it is, whatever way, shape, or form. Maybe it's going to the gym and pumping iron for a while, and then you're calm, and then you can be quiet enough that you can pay attention to what your path is. Let's see, anything else? I think that really gets the point across of what I wanted to say, other than I will give you a couple of statistics. As of July 24th, 2008, there are 15.8 million Americans practicing yoga. So the poor bankers that said, what's she doing? Why would you leave a career in banking to go teach yoga classes at $6 a pop or whatever? Okay. So 15.8 million people in the U.S. practicing, 7% of Americans today. That number has gone up 300% since 2004, between 2004 and 2008. Back in the mid to late 70s, we started doing something called jogging, and everybody said it was a fad. Now we call it running, but people are still doing it. And yoga is the same way. Yoga is not necessarily a fad, it's a trend. It's a cultural trend. And there are so many different ways it can branch out. The national yoga industry is estimated to be worth $5.7 billion annually in the U.S. So that includes workshops and website sales and yoga classes and different ways of being creative in the conversation with the business of yoga. So it's really cool, a cool, amazing thing. So again, the website, I'm always evolving with it. It needs a little bit of work, but people can go join us online. They can join the online community. And they get a free DVD. It changes quarterly, so people can go back and watch it. So I have my favorite undergraduate video production man come in and film these every so often. And we usually film 3 or 4 at a time, so people can get that. I have a kids yoga program, because around here you have a lot of mommies with kids, was my intuition. But it turns out that most of the people that attend my class are grandmommies with grandbabies, spending some quality time. So here's some images from the kids yoga class. And that is a party. Prenatal yoga is a program I'm wanting to develop. I'm just waiting for the right teacher to show up and go through my certification program. So if you're in this room, this might be your moment. Okay. So there are a lot of different things that you can do with the practice in building the business. But the best thing is creativity, staying creative and listening both to yourself and to what other people are telling you, not getting your ego involved, especially when it comes to advertising. A lot of advertising money is wasted because people want to see themselves on the billboard or the whatever. So knowing the right place for that to happen. This is my latest love, and it is in embryonic form at this point. I'm wanting to start a private scholarship foundation for single women and women who are retired whose spouses have died to go through the certification program to receive Thai yoga therapy and to come to yoga classes. And eventually I'd love to get to the place where I'm making as much on the website that I can create a donation-based yoga class business, so you just come and pay what you can pay. So that would give me my karma yoga, my yoga of service. So that's it for me, other than any questions that you have going on. Yeah. I do have RA. RA is an autoimmune disease, so I use yoga as a complementary therapy for symptom management for that. And I'm constantly working with what works and what doesn't. Some pharmaceuticals I use, other natural. I just figure it's all good, so I do my best with that. In essence, I'm, 99%, at ease with it. Not bound by it anymore. So, yeah. Yeah.
Do you go go to conferences of like a national yoga organization, or are you part of one of those associations?
You know, my teacher training certification. So the certification programs I offer a yoga instructor. I train Thai yoga therapists, chakra therapy, which is the more energy healing modality. But my instructor program is Yoga Alliance certified. And Yoga Alliance is basically a national sort of standardization of yoga. So I have not been invited to any conferences yet, like the Yoga Journal, the Midwest Conference or things like that, mainly because I'm not really putting it out there for that. I'm wanting to develop the website and do other things locally and reach people in their homes. So.
I know that you gain revenue from the videos that you sell off the website. Are there other ways that you're trying to, or other ways that you already do get money off of the website, and you're trying to as you
People can enroll in classes and they can enroll in classes off the website and workshops. But right now the yoga products are just being sold on the website. I was just contacted by a company called Hugger Mugger Yoga Products, and they are the Nike of yoga products. They happen to be have their warehouse in Salt Lake City, and I dropped off a restorative practice DVD that uses all their props, and they are going to be carrying my DVDs. So that's more national exposure, and if I can get that brand name on board, that's my direction I'm headed. So, anything else? Feel free to leave your email if you want to be on the email list, and mark if you're interested in certifications, because I'll put you on a special list for that. If you have the list, did it go all the way around the room? Who has? Oh, it went all the way around. Good. I also have free passes and flyers, and you're welcome to take more than one free pass. If you have friends that you want to bring to class with you, you're welcome to take as many as you want. So, okay, thank you.